What's up, YouTube? Back again. This is part two to um, boot camp, the Corona edition. Trying to think where I left off. I think after P days. Oh yeah. Um, so after P days, you go to your ship and all that. Um, Depending on who you have for RDCs, it's either going to be you'll get beat 3 times a day or more, or you won't get beat at all. I didn't get beat at all in boot camp, so that shit really all depends on how your RDCs are. Um, so for inspections and shit like that, I know I talked about that I think at the end of the last video. Just make sure your shit's on point. Make sure you don't got no gear adrift, which is like the strings and shit that are on the uniform that you sometimes get from wearing them so much. Um, Make sure you know your chain of command. Make sure you know collar devices, fucking patches on the shoulders for dress blues, dress whites, and shit like that. So pretty much like a typical day. I'm trying to think. You get a whole schedule. You usually eat chow, obviously 3 times a day. So in the morning, afternoon, dinner. Chow you usually eat between usually like 5 and 7 o'clock. Um, and then you go to like these different academic classes, which is something I didn't really like expect at all. You sit and you'll learn about like the UCMJ. You'll learn about um, first aid. Fucking what else? Just a whole bunch of different shit that's in your recruit training guide. You do take 2 tests in boot camp. Um, I would say study for that shit. I didn't really study for them, and I was able to pass both the tests. We had a few guys that failed the first one in my division. So, pretty much the tests are just all the fucking, the questions at the end of each chapter. It's like 10 questions, and usually it's like, I think it's 50 or 60 questions on each test, so it's not that hard. You take 2 of those, one at the beginning of boot camp, and then one at the end, towards the end of boot camp, like week 4 or 5. So I was a push division, so um, when we did our romp at the Great Wolf Lodge for 2 weeks, they counted that towards our actual time at boot camp. So originally, my boot camp was really only supposed to be 5 weeks. My chief was able to get us through pretty much through 5 weeks. Um, that was until we got romped. I'll talk about that probably at the end of the video, what that shit means. But pretty much what else? You stand watches. Now, watches are a thing in the military. Me personally, I hate standing watch, but it's just like a way of life in the military. It's really not that bad in boot camp. Like, the longest you'll stand a watch is like 4 hours maybe, and then the shortest is like 2 hours. Usually in first thing in the morning, I think it's like 8 to 12, and then 12 to 16, and then the rest are 2 hours after that. It's really not that bad. And then you've got quarterdeck watches, which is pretty much whatever ship you're in, you'll be on the quarterdeck. You either be the rover, you'll be, I forget what it's called. I think it might be the moo and the poo maybe. One of them is when you like ring the bells and shit every like 30 minutes, and then the other one is you're standing on the opposite side from him, and you pretty much just check people in, like pretty much all the galley workers and shit. If you're on the person with the bells, that's where usually all the RDCs come in, officers will come in, and you have to like salute officers obviously, and you have to ask for their military ID for them to check into the building. Just try not to fuck that up. There's like a paper that'll be on the desk and it'll show you step by step what you're supposed to do if an officer walks in, because I know I like fuck that up a lot. But once you get the hang of it, it's really not that hard. And pretty much I will say this about the PFAs. If you're not a good runner and you've never ran like a mile and a half or never really like ran track and shit like that, practice your run before you go to boot camp. That's what helped me the most. Is I started running like 2 months prior to when I went to boot camp, and that helped me a lot. Because I was one of the older guys in my division. I'm 27, so if you're older and you really haven't ran in a while, I suggest doing that shit, because you don't want to be the person in boot camp who's never ran before and then you fail your PFA and then you get set back in training. I know the second you do Yeah, you do two PFAs. First one is like right after P days, that first week. Um, I didn't fail. I got like 14, 18, but I didn't get the bonus because I was supposed to get, I think, under 1345 for me to get the bonus. I passed the test. Oh, that's the other thing. Like you take a test that's like, I think it's like 12 questions, 15 questions. And then if you pass that and you pass your run, then you can potentially get promoted. I think we had one guy in my division who got promoted because he was able to do both. But you also have to remember you're in ROM for 2 weeks prior to that, so that does kind of fuck you. Because you can't really run in the hotel. I mean, you can do intensive workouts, but to me, it's not the same thing as like actually going to run like every other day or every day. So definitely practice that shit. Like if you don't know how to run, if you don't know how to control your breathing when you're running, pretty much what helped me was you breathe in through your nose, you breathe out through your mouth, and you do that your whole run. So that way, by the time you get, like, you'll hit your second wind, you'll be able to push through and get a good time. I got 12 minutes on the final PFA, which for my age group is pretty good. I'm like 27 to 30 range. So my bare minimum was 13:45, and I thought that was good considering my first PFA I got 14:18. So I cut that down by about 2 minutes, 2:18 to be exact. Um, but I mean, if you're young, like between 18 and like 23, then you should be fine because most of y'all are like young and haven't, really like been through life. And I smoke cigarettes and shit like that, so that's what really held me back, really killed my lungs and shit. So, but at any rate, I would at least practice at least a month before you're leaving for boot camp. Practice your push-ups. Um, it was kind of weird. Our first PFA we had to do sit-ups, and then our last one we didn't have to. So I don't really know how that shit's working now. I know our last PFA we only had to do the run and push-ups, but practice your push-ups, practice proper form. Um, Obviously, like you want to get a good score with that, and then you do these things called shuttle runs or sustained runs. You'll do like a 10-minute sustained run, 15-minute. We didn't do our 20-minute sustained run because we got romped, so we kind of missed it. But a sustained run is pretty much you just run as many laps as you can within 10 or 15 minutes, like without stopping. So you can build up your endurance, and so you can push through, obviously when you want to quit. You do PT, usually every day or every other day you'll do PT, like inside your compartment with like one of your RDCs. You'll do, fucking God, I'm trying to remember, I think air chairs, push-ups, sit-ups, just like intensive workouts that are going to help you with your calisthenics and all that to keep you in shape. So you're not really, so you're going into your PFA with, a good standard instead of not working out at all, which helped me a lot. I'm trying to think of what else. As far as when you're going to chow, right? Don't fucking have like, don't eat. Pretty much try to eat as healthy as you can. Like obviously yogurt and peanut butter is like healthy. Just don't overdo that shit. Try not to eat too much chocolate milk. Like chocolate milk's good like after a fucking workout or after a PFA, because you do need sugar in your system to build up fat so you can burn it out. But when you're going into your PFAs or your shuttle runs, just eat like a light breakfast, a light lunch. Don't overdo it. I remember after our first PFA, when we were leaving, we had someone that puked outside because he ate too much. So you definitely don't want to eat too much, and you definitely want to hydrate. You're gonna hear that shit a lot in boot camp. Just hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And it's important to stay hydrated because then you can sustain your breathing more, obviously, and being hydrated is a good thing. You don't want to be dehydrated. You want your piss pretty much clear as water. Trying to think of what else. I mean, the classes really aren't that bad. You pretty much sit there. The main thing is for you to just take all the fill in the blanks in your recruit training guide that the instructor's going over and just make sure you get them. Because some of those will be on the test, not all of them. But a lot of it is you just learning like the ins and outs of the Navy. They talk about Sapper a lot. Pretty much they'll go over UCMJ quite a bit. And marching, like you'll be doing a shit ton of marching. Me personally, I hated fucking marching. I sucked at marching at the beginning of boot camp. I was a road guard. I sucked at road guard for a while. And then I was able to kind of move up to a leadership position with being a section leader. And that's the other thing. If you want to be like like an A-Rock, an RPOC, a fucking yeoman, starboard watch, port watch, if you hold that shit throughout boot camp till the end, you will get promoted. We had my A-Rock, my yeoman, my RPOC, starboard watch, and port watch. All those guys got promoted. And I wish I kind of jumped on that early on in boot camp, even though I was a section leader, I didn't get promoted. But definitely go for leadership. I mean, it does come with more responsibility because if you do fuck up, you'll either be fired or you'll be beat. Because they want the leaders of the division to be at a higher standard than everybody else because they're supposed to lead everybody by example. So if you do that shit, like you'll definitely get promoted if you take a leadership position like early on in P days. Trying to think of what else. Um, Really, boot camp. I mean, right now it is kind of crazy because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and like wearing your mask all day long does suck. But I feel like it's a new norm now, like wearing your mask. But just make sure you always wear your mask, because if you ever get caught with not wearing your mask, like you'll get beat. Like that shit happened to me. I like didn't have it on, and I was talking to somebody, and I got beat instantly. The whole division got beat actually, because nobody checked me about putting my mask on. So make sure you do that shit. Trying to think of what else. I mean, boot camp honestly is not that bad, man. I mean, you just gotta push yourself through it. You just gotta hold each other accountable. Like the brotherhood and the camaraderie you build with people that you've never met that are from all walks of life. I mean, it's just like powerful shit because you'll never have an experience like it probably for the rest of your life. At least for me, it was the biggest experience of my life, and it definitely changed me. So it can definitely help y'all. Um, but yeah, you got inspections. You usually do 2 PIs, 1 DMI, which is like I think it's duty military inspection, which is they check your rack for fold, if your blanket's folded right. Just make sure that shit's always right. I know something that helped me is I would just wear my PT gear, which is like the sweatshirt and sweatpants at night, and just have my blanket already folded, and I would just put my feet on top of it so that way in the morning I would have more time to like shave or do other shit, put my uniform on as opposed to like making my rack, my blanket, because I made my rack like tight as hell. Because if you do your 45s tight and you tighten your sheets, then it shouldn't be that bad to fix in the morning. You just gotta touch it up. So that helped me. As far as like the personal inspections, just like I said in the last video, just make sure your uniform's on point. Make sure you know your chain of command, your collar devices, all that shit, and you should be good. And then when you get towards like the end of boot camp, it does get easier because you're so conditioned to boot camp because it's like a routine every single day. You know what you're doing. So, I mean, all of it, the first couple weeks of boot camp was rough for me because I just wasn't used to it. You know what I mean? You got like 15 minutes to shave in the morning. I had 69 guys in my division when we started, so that shit was rough. But what helped me a lot is I would get up before Reveille. I would get up like maybe a half hour before Reveille, just so the bathroom wasn't so crowded with everybody shaving and shit. Because I had to shave twice a day. There's some of y'all that are young that probably won't have to shave at all. For y'all that got like hair like I do, like I had to shave twice a fucking day in boot camp. So, just learn how to shave if you don't know how to shave. Just ask somebody that's older or somebody who knows how to shave. Because even though you do wear your mask, your RDCs will check your shave and go tell you to shave if you fuck up. What else? You got inspections on fucking marching, which isn't that bad because y'all march everywhere, like literally everywhere, all throughout boot camp. And I went in like the middle of summer, so it was like hot as shit. That's the only part that sucks is like sweating in your type 3s for like 3 or 4 hours, but it's not that bad. You got your swim qual, which is pretty easy. You just jump off a diving board, swim. I think it's like like maybe 50, 60 yards, something like that. And then you do a dead man's float, and then you pretty much tread water, I think, for 15 minutes. Not that hard. And then you do firefighting, which I thought was the funnest part of boot camp was firefighting. Just because you learn how to fight a fire a little bit, and then you do more of that once you get to your A school. But firefighting is definitely fun. You guys will like that shit. And then live fire. Live fire was alright for me, but it's fun too. I mean, live fire is pretty good. And then once you get really all through that, you get the battle stations, which I'm not going to talk about because I'm not supposed to talk about that shit unless you're a sailor. So I'll just say it's like it's like not what you expect. I'll just say that. And then you get to your graduation and all that. And I mean, graduation kind of sucked for us because we didn't really get to experience like a full-on like graduation ceremony like you usually do in boot camp. But we did have like a nice little ceremony at the end of battle stations, which was pretty awesome. You know, the CO will come in and congratulate everybody for being, you know, becoming a sailor. So that was pretty cool. Um, but and the other main thing in boot camp is just make sure you stay awake. I remember we used to have guys that would just nod off in classes and shit would get yelled at. Just hydrate. If you go to sleep or you're falling asleep, just get up, go to the side of the classroom, and then just stand there until you feel like you can stay awake. Because you want to stay awake, man. You don't want to be that guy that can't stay awake during classes and shit. So that's the other big one. And now I'll get to romp, bro, which is restricted a movement period. Now this has been happening, I think, frequently a shit ton in boot camp, where a lot of guys will pop for COVID. Happened in my division, we had like 15 guys, I think 15 that popped positive for COVID, and then we had to pause our training and then pretty much go to, it was Pack Fleet and Midway, which are like the ceremonial halls of boot camp. That's where they're holding the romp. Pretty much you just sit for 2 weeks long. It sucks. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You gotta sit in a chair and you just chill all day. And then you have taps. You stand watches when you're in romp too. So that kind of sucks. But that shit really fucked with me because it's like we just finished, I think, week 2, and I remember we finished our first test, and then we had to go to romp because 15 guys popped. And then we had to pause for 2 weeks, and then that pushed my graduation date back. I was supposed to graduate July 31st, and then we ended up graduating like August 14th. So that's the only thing that sucks. That's something that's really out of your control, and you can't really control all that shit, man. I mean, just wash your hands, wear your face mask, have good hygiene. We cleaned our compartment probably 2 or 3 times a day just to kill germs and shit. But just make sure you wash your hands. That's really the main thing, man, and like wear your mask. Because that shit is real, man. There's so many divisions that got romped. And I switched I was in ship 12, and then we finished in ship 10. And yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I mean, once you get past those first couple weeks of boot camp, and you get into a routine, it's really not that bad. I mean, I did it at 27. So if you're younger than me or you're even older than me, you can do that shit. We had 3 guys in my division that were 2 were 38, 1 was 39, and they all did it. So just have confidence, just believe in yourself that you can do it, and you know what I mean, you'll be fine. That's pretty much all I got for this video. Just like the video, subscribe, leave comments, and I'll catch you guys next time. All right, peace.